when the sun touches it, in some places the Irish countryside seems permanently sad, perhaps reflecting the unhappiness and tragedies of the past. This is County Mayo in the northwest of the Republic. Less than 150 years ago, this area saw more than its share of the country's misery. The memories of human rights indignities and the scars of deprivation remain. When the blight wiped out successive potato crops, the effect was devastating. More than 1 million of Ireland's poor died from starvation. In 1859, the mountains around Lake Doolough witnessed a particularly harrowing aspect of that tragedy. Hundreds of starving peasants trekked into town in search of food or a ticket to the workhouse. Many perished. Each year, their memory is honoured on what is known as the Trail of Tears. This year, the event had an extra significance, commemorating a walk the Choctaw Indians made in the winter of 1831. Their current chief, Hollis Roberts, recalled the time when his people journeyed 500 miles on their Trail of Tears. When the government forcibly moved them from Mississippi to Oklahoma, he said the women kissed the rocks and trees, knowing they'd never see them again. 15,000 Choctaw Indians died.
It was very harsh upon our people. It was a time when they did not want to move, number one. Number two, it was through the winter months when it was ice, snow, and our people were freezing to death. Our people were drowning. They were dying because of diseases such as cholera, flu, pneumonia. Then when the news of the Irish famine came to us, then our people were very moved by it because we just had experienced this 17 years earlier. And so we were willing to try to do whatever we could to assist the people here.
After a Choctaw chief heard the news in Washington, his tribe collected $710, a fortune, for the Irish.
It's just incredible when one thinks that these people were very poor themselves. In fact, Niall's Weekly Register at the time, recording their generosity, had a footnote which said, the poor Indian giving his mite to the poor Irish. And to view that generosity against the background of the Trail of Tears, I think is very moving for us. And this occasion today gives us, as Irish people, an opportunity of saying to the Choctaw Nation, thank you for your humanity.
In this symbolic reenactment, locals represent the 600 who made the dreadful journey over the Mayo Mountains for relief. Their suffering from pain and hunger received little humanity from their British landlords. There was no work in the town, and many were found dead on the streets. Those who survived were sent to Delphi Lodge, where the workhouse guardians were meeting over lunch. They weren't to be disturbed. When someone did emerge, he offered nothing, sent them away, and helped to write another inglorious chapter in British history. For those turned away, even the hardship of scraping for potatoes would be just a bitter memory as they made the painful journey back to Doolough. However, peace came to many of them on the way. Hundreds. Some were buried where they fell. Where there was no earth, they were taken to a valley. Undertakers ran out of conventional coffins, so reusable hinged coffins were employed for the last short journey. Death became the only thriving business in the area.
Where people were dying of starvation on that occasion.
Although sentiment for the local tragedy was uppermost, those who turned out for the gathering and march shared their feelings generously with their Choctaw Indian guests. The Choctaws reciprocated by making the march organizer an honorary Indian chief, a rare honor indeed. The march actually embraced several causes with a common theme: poverty. It was organised by Afri, Action from Ireland, who focus on the Irish famine to attract attention to the needs of third world countries today. But for the Choctaw guests and descendants of the Irish of County Mayo, the landmarks along the route are poignant reminders of past suffering close to home. So hazardous was the walk then that at one spot heavy squalls blew up and swept scores into the lake below.
No, Chief Roberts.
There were many famines in County Mayo, and they've left their mark on the Western character. It's been claimed that 1% of the world's population owes its heritage to the Irish experience which drove so many to migrate. This sombre mound at Champel Doon Moor, where hundreds of victims were buried in the sand, is the nearest the Irish have to a memorial to their famine dead.
The story behind it is that in 1847, the winter was very severe and the people were extremely weak from the hunger, that they could no longer break the earth. So they began to carry their dead down to the beach. And because there was an ancient monastic settlement here, I think associated with St. Coleman, known as Champel Doolough Moor, they began to bury their dead in and around it. But of course, more and more people died, so more and more bodies went in and more sand was piled up until eventually this huge mound rises up. And as you can see at the moment, it's actually an island because the sea has come in and surrounded it.